Ladies and gentlemen, if you were keeping up with the channel, one thing you might have noticed was that very recently, I was sponsored by Etheria Restart, much like I am for this video, to make a video about their game. And a lot of the commentary that I ended up receiving was really centered around this idea, right? That I'm going ahead, I'm like selling out, oh, I should just delete it. Oh, like, you know, I'm not displaying the case properly. Oh, I'm like lying. That's a lot of accusations. And what I actually wanted to do today was, with the help of the game itself, actually doing like a live demonstration, talk about A, why I'm not lying, B, the different ways that you can actually enjoy a game, and C, firsthand, why I'm actually enjoying Etheria Restart. Because a lot of people, I think, have gotten a bit of an impression about this game, where they've gone ahead, they've seen that it's a PvP one, they've seen that they need to log in very frequently, and they're burning themselves out with this idea that if they don't play, if they fall behind a little bit, then they won't be at like the top of the PvP list, so on and so forth. And what I wanted to focus on today was how I'm digesting the game, why I'm still sticking with it, and in my opinion, a more healthy way to approach just gacha games as a whole. So with that, let's go ahead, let's get right on into it. We've got the game pulled up over here and talk a bit about some of its systems. So first things first, I think that's something about Etheria Restart that a lot of people don't realize and is especially relevant because it's a PvP game, is actually the fact that there's a bunch of different servers. You see that I'm a level 30 on Global S7. You got Europe, Global Asia, all of this. So what these additional servers actually mean is that if you're a new player, like I was when I started a couple of weeks ago, you start on a fresh server. If you do choose it, you can start on the more experienced ones as well, with other people who are fresh. So even if the game is PvP, even if the game does have like competitive rankings and like time-based progress and all of that, you're not necessarily falling behind depending on when you start, because you'll have a new server available for you, and then the people that are playing on it aren't going to be like severely over-leveled and absolutely blowing you up. So that's kind of like one of the first misconceptions that I had personally with it, and knowing that I can progress at my own pace, still be behind people that are grinding the fuck out of the game, but then not be like a level 1 versus level 80s is pretty nice. So let's go ahead, let's actually get into it now and talk a little bit about some of its systems. So one of the big things that has kind of like kept me interested in the game, and one of the big things that I feel like is one of the best guiding principles for players, is just how many fucking missions this game has. It's kind of actually ridiculous. So this little thing called a hyperlink charter over here, what it does is it essentially guides you. You can see how many missions there are, right? It's like 162, 144, 42, 114. When I'm in this, I know exactly what I should be doing. I know what I should prioritize. It's like, oh, I should go equip somebody with level 12 modules. Now I know to complete that mission, I need to go ahead, go into the challenge menu, and, well, go to the place that drops the modules, right? It gives you a reason or a place to dedicate all these different resources, all of your constrained, you know, time-gated resource stability. It lets you know where to actually put it. Which, in a game like this, where the regeneration is kind of fast, and you get, you know, a fair amount of, like, these little batteries, and then you can refresh as well, it can sometimes be hard. And this, to me, has made the entire playing process incredibly self-contained. I haven't actually looked up a single guide for this game, playing a little bit more casually, playing a little bit more free-to-play, and I've just been able to take it at my own pace. I've consumed literally zero content about this game, and I've kind of just been taking it on my own, and without like the pressure of knowing, okay, like I need to be like optimizing every single resource like this so I can make as much progress as possible. I think a lot of people have honestly optimized some of the fun out of the game because they're so caught up on being first place. You have all the tools you need to take it however you want. And when you look at the underlying game and you look at the underlying systems, you'll understand why I'm making such a compliment for this. So one of the big things that keeps me actually coming back to this game is actually the grind. And you might be wondering, oh my gosh, grind in a game sounds terrible. I just want to be able to get everything immediately, right? Like, I don't want to farm for gear. I don't want to farm and do all of that. Grinding is bad, in my opinion, when it's too easy. When there's no effort at all, when there's almost no challenge, And it just feels like you're mindlessly doing something over and over just to move the needle, move the bar the tiniest bit. And in this game, when you grind, when you're going through and you're unlocking the stages and you're getting all of this stuff ready to go, it's not easy. I'm going to be real with you. Doing things like right now, I'm on like Nightmare 1 of Terror Matan. Getting to these stages, unlocking these things, being able to progress across the gear tiers, I thought this was going to be a big pain in the ass, right? I thought it was going to be a huge pain, but it's actually kind of fun. Because you get to play around with different team compositions. Like if I just go ahead and I go into the challenge menu over here, this is where I realized a character like D-Ting, who's incredibly single target, is actually broken as hell in content where there's like multiple enemies at once. Because this guy has like a specific weakness where his hand deals a shit ton of damage, but also is like a glass cannon. And if you blow up his hand, the rest of the encounter becomes way easier. And it's just, there are like these very simple mechanics. Like I got this character called Mio that can like steal turn beater. And so it's actually like better to use against like faster enemies because you can boost up your team even more. There are so many like unique mechanics that I feel like a lot of other games don't actually do. And the end result is that the strategies that you can approach these different teams widely varies depending on who you pull, what you have available, and of course, the boss that you're facing. And I'm not gonna lie, the end result is that I feel like every player's experience becomes very uniquely tailored around the units that they actually have on their account. I don't think any person is facing like this Nightmare 1 enemy in the same exact way. They're all leveling different units, taking different approaches, prioritizing different things as they go for this one goal, right? And at the end of the day, you know that everyone's gonna get there. And part of the satisfaction and part of like the fun of being a bit more of like a casual or free-to-play player is not necessarily worrying about how fast I'm going to get there. I'm treating this game as like literally a game. And you want to know what it reminds me of? It's so high difficulty that it reminds me of like the tactical RPGs, the turn-based ones from like 10 years ago. It reminds me to a degree of like some of the single-player games. And naturally, in those single-player games, you get all the characters for free. But in a game like this, the characters aren't free, right? You still have to pull them, but there are way more characters. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. You might get a roster like 15 characters you can use all the time in like a single player turn-based game, but here you've got like 50, but the catch is you gotta pay for them, right? And to me, that's like an interesting sacrifice. And when I'm taking the game at my own pace, it's something that I can actually appreciate, not having to be so sweaty all of the time. So that's just a little bit about like one of the specific encounters. Now I want to talk a little bit more about like just like the overall like progression, the way that you like level stuff and like gear, that sort of things. Best way to do that is going to be in the character menu, right? I actually appreciate how simple this game is to progress your units. To me, it takes a lot of like the intricacies. It takes a lot of like the annoying part about like resource acquisition and just dumbs it all down into one of the most simple systems possible, right? You just upgrade your character's level. Great, I can do that, right? I use EXP mats of various rarities, right? Nothing crazy here. Nothing's gonna blow anybody's mind. Then when it comes to gear, yes, I have a lot of slots. I have a lot of different substats, but the gear effects are so simple that anybody can look at this and you don't need a guide for what's going on. These are the set effects, brother. Increase your attack. Okay, I'll do more damage with attack characters and then increase my speed. Okay, my character is going to take their turn faster. Stuff like this is just, it's very easy to adopt. And ironically enough, right, everyone talks about how sweaty Etheria is. Its systems, though, are so non-convoluted and they're so simple that, like, even if you're somebody that looks up no guides on this game, you'll know how to play it. It's extremely intuitive. So we just talked about some of the gear. We talked about the upgrading. Of course, the game has like an RNG gear system, but you read the effects and you're like, oh, I know what attack bonus does. It's going to make my attack higher. I know what effect accuracy is. It's going to make my effects land better. I know what effect resistance is. It's going to make me more immune to effects. I know what defense is. It's even the same in like the upgrading system itself. You don't have any like weird terminology that you wouldn't understand unless you like, you know, research the game more. Now, let's talk about the skills and the upgrading. Or, sorry, the best place to probably talk about next is, like, the shell. The shell in this situation is, like, an add-on to the gear system. And it just, like, will randomly spawn with, like, the set bonuses that are at the bottom. And then as you level them up, they do passive effects like increase attack, increase your effect accuracy. It's just more and more attributes, more and more layers built on top of simplicity. This is what I mean by you can play this game without a guide. You can play this game super casually, take it whatever pace you want, and you will get some sort of satisfaction out of it because the content is actually hard. And in my opinion, unless you're going to be somebody that's like actually going to stay at the upper echelon of like performance, not everybody needs to be like the best gamer ever. You don't need to be the best to enjoy a game like this. And you're going to understand that in a gacha anyways, somebody's just going to pay to be better. That's just how it is, right? That's just how it happens. If you want a true competitive game, there are plenty of MOBAs, plenty of FPSs out there that are always going to have like an equal working ground. But for me, in a game like this, where you're like building the account, collecting the characters, it's about the journey. And I think Etheria has one of the most frictionless journeys possible. Now, let's get into the skill leveling. And as you can see over here, right? It's just colors and then pieces of jello. And the pieces of jello are time gated. Yeah. That's true. I know this is a pain point for a lot of people, but it's not something that I've had to worry about yet, right? Because I'm not really at that level. And personally, I think that if you're just progressing at the pace of the game that like the daily stamina system gives you, you don't necessarily run into an issue with these. I might be wrong about this. This might be my take, right? These lattices are used to level up skills. Skills are used to complete content. And people are complaining that they don't have enough lattices for the type of content they want to do. And the thing is, a lot of people, they've made it a thing in this game to do this every single day. They gain 1,000 stability. Guys, these individual encounters and fights that can take up to like 3 minutes each, they cost 10 stability. And so by exchanging for up to 1,000 every day, they've essentially power leveled themselves. And pretty much every meta player who's trying to reach like the highest endgame modes possible has done this. Literally played the game for tens of hours. I didn't do any of this, and I don't have a lattice issue with the pace that it's going. I think that there is a chance. Some of that critique that people have been giving, oh, these resources are too time constrained. Maybe they're too time constrained because you have been like 5xing, 6xing, 7xing your playtime by using all of your premium currency on stamina refreshes. I'm going to be real here, right? This game does have an RNG gear system. This game does have like, you know, a lot of places to spend that stability. But you can think of plenty of other gachas where you can power level using your stamina, and then you'll face a constraint somewhere else, right? You'll face a constraint somewhere else because you spent all that money, all that resource on this, none of it on the pulls. And then, you know, the time-gated stuff is what's going to be your biggest barrier because you don't have the time because you've essentially hit the fast-forward button. And time, in my opinion, on these lattices or whatever, is kind of like the devs' way of equalizing it so that even if you pay money, even if you pay to progress, even if you're playing a super crazy amount, you're not going to absolutely blow everybody else out of the water in terms of power levels, right? You're still going to have to wait for the one thing that everybody else is waiting for. And I don't think that's the worst thing ever, especially if you're somebody that's playing on one of the newer servers like I am. So I've talked a lot about that. I've talked a lot about the systems. Now I kind of want to talk a little bit about probably one of the biggest things that, you know, might be a barrier for a lot of people. And that one is going to be, ladies and gentlemen, the banner system and how it all works and the availability of the characters and all of that. I'm going to be real with you, right? Playing casually, looking at tier lists, doing all that, I do it. I look at Pridewin's tier list at a baseline. I go ahead and I'm like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, what character should I pull? Who should I prioritize? Should I even spend any pulls on these banners? And you'll notice that I don't have Nahor and I don't have Fukyu, however you're supposed to pronounce that. I don't have them on my account. And that's because their ranking on the tier list isn't particularly high. And so with like the pull income from the game that I've been experiencing, I honestly feel like you're able to pull on this standard banner. You're able to pull, get these, sometimes randomly get these LD units without a bit of an issue. But I can agree that the existence of the LD units as a whole can be a bit of a turnoff. But you want to know what my take is on the matter? I think that the fact that LD units can't really get these affinity bonuses, this additional 15% crit rate, this additional 15% attack, unless they're against other LD units, is kind of interesting. Because if the content involves one of these categories or attributes, then at a baseline, the best DPS, right, or the best debuffer potentially for that content will be the opposing side over here, rather than an LD unit, right? So these might be like the best all-rounders when it comes to approaching content, but there is always going to be a use case for those other units to get the most optimal clear possible, right? The most optimal time, probably the most optimal performance. And this is the thing. Isn't that kind of going against the sweaty factor that a lot of people are talking about, being like rank 1, all of that? It's kind of true, right? To be super sweaty, you actually want the lower rate, like the less rare units as well. While these guys are actually better for the casuals, in my opinion, because you can just slot them in. You don't really gotta care about like the typing, but you'll deal a little bit less damage, right, than if you had brought the actual right unit. You're not necessarily getting these additional benefits. So the way that the system is built up, I can see why people are upset, but low-key, I think it could have actually been a bit worse if these were the only 3 that were in the game, and there wasn't kind of like this constant one in the background. That's, you know, more of like a jack-of-all-trades sort of deal. So we've gone into the various systems. Now I think I'll talk about the last thing, and that's going to be the PvP in this circumstance. You can see over here, right? I have not unlocked a lot of PvP modes. The main PvP mode that I'm gonna have available, like I'm like gold 1 over here. The main PvP mode I'm gonna have is gonna be kind of like this AI defense team, one like, you know, going against them. And I'll be honest about the take. I'll be honest about the thoughts over here. I'm a little bit cracked. I can just go ahead. I'll fight against somebody that's over my rating, and I'll show you. Okay, this guy's gonna cook me. Oh, she's gonna cook me too. Okay, who doesn't have a level? Like, I can see what's on the team and choose not to fight them because I know I'm gonna get let's just go ahead and see right over here, demonstrate for you all where I think the PvP could be a little bit unbalanced, right? So what you'll see on my team right now are these 4 units. This is a starter unit. This guy's really easy to get and also one of the best PvE DPSs in the game. And I got her off the standard banner, and I got her off the standard banner. Mio is an LD unit, and her kit is a little unfair. So let me just show you all what the issue is over here. You're seeing that I'm using all of my builds that exist based off of my grinding. She's got a lot of speed. And I mentioned before that she has a steel turn meter. So if I just use it over here, that is when their team is acting. And you can probably imagine in a PvP game what could cause an issue over here. Like now I'm gonna buff and debuff the enemies. And then now I'm gonna shoot the blicky at this guy. What do you think is gonna happen when I fire this shot? And you'll notice my Mio is going to act again before they've even taken a turn. Oh, he's dead. He's good. Goodbye. Now I've got this AoE attack that's about to hit all of them. I stole even more of their meter. Now Mio's gonna go again, and she now has a freeze. He's frozen. And now I have a second buff I can put on. And he's now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the units that you happen to have on your team, or the units that you've been able to pull on the standard banner, he didn't even get to use a single action. He just got his turn meter stolen like 17 times. And it's so strong, I can actually just auto every single encounter. And I think that I've won against players that actually have way more built stuff than I do because of the interaction that I put together on this team. And the thing is, I don't even know if this is the strongest team that I can push out using my account and using my resources. I've just taken a stab with this one, and honestly, I kind of just been blowing it all up, right? And fortunately, or, you know, depending on your point of view, right, I've been able to pull those units, and there are people that aren't going to have them. But the PvP is so rewarding, and obviously, you're going to be able to fight against other players that maybe haven't been as unlucky. you get a lot of units in this game, right? And even some of the 3-star units, like this guy, have a lot of use cases. Some characters are way better in PvP than others, and then some characters are really good in PvE compared to others. And I think having that distinction, right? Having that sort of like desire or like that need to like invest horizontally across your account instead of just using the same exact team for every single encounter, I'm kind of a fan of that. Because really, part of this game is like, it isn't necessarily that stale when I'm going through and actually trying to just complete the baseline content. And the thing is, because I'm obviously a bit of a busier CC, I cover a bunch of different games as well, I haven't been able to cover everything. And I think that's another concern for some people, right? Is that they feel like they need to do all the content immediately. And when stuff resets on like a weekly basis or whatever, it can seem like that. But Etheria is a main game with the amount of content that it has, the amount of time that stuff takes. But you can play it as a side game and just look for completion rather than like ranking. And I think when you see all of the different factors, all of its different components actually play out, how simplistic it is to pick up and how easy it is to know like where to progress, where to spend your resources, having all of these different missions, having all of these different all of these different events, and then of course, like free rewards to guide you along the way for hitting different milestones. I think it genuinely has one of like the best beginner experiences, especially if you're taking the game casually. But if you're looking to sweat and if you're looking to be out on top, I think that one thing that's unfortunately going to occur and has occurred for a lot of people is that original point that I was saying before, right? They've optimized the fun out of the game. And when you actually just only look at the tier list, right? Don't look at the guides. Don't look at the, oh, you'll brick your account if you don't spend your resources in this way. You just kind of tune yourself out and you look to complete this game, kind of almost approach this as like a single player game with some additional game modes. I have been really enjoying it casually. And the main reason why is because this shit is legitimately hard. I have destroyed myself on a couple of stages. The one thing that I'll say, and hopefully I'll be able to say this in the video. Hey, Etheria, time to show how base you are. I think it sucks that when you fail a stage, you lose 1 stability. I don't like that. I wish it wasn't in the game. That is the one, like, pimple, like, whitehead pimple, inflamed critique that I'll make. When the game is this hard, when the game is already at the point where it's like, where it can feel like this much of an accomplishment to clear, I don't feel like I want to be kicked while I'm down. Like, especially when I was like about to clear it and then like bad RNG kind of like boots me. Like, you know, come on, man. It's especially because the game's got like an auto battle system and stuff like that. But yeah. Oh yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say is like, is kind of like touch on the casual and the casual factor. One of the big reasons why I say it's like a pretty good side game is that like you can have it like open in the background as well when you are playing it super casually and you don't really care about optimization, because you can actually just like run these battles, start it, and then I'll just like tab out. The battle will happen in the background. Unfortunately, it's not like an auto clear, but then I could just go over, do a couple of things like talk to chat, go watch a video, go do whatever. That's if I'm on stream, and then I can literally go even play other games while I'm grinding, getting all of this resource spent, go watch videos, go do all of that, and then like still be able to come back and then go challenge like the more intense stages later on, because it costs stability to do those as well. It's just a lot of the stuff in the game. I think that there's a great foundation here. It's just when there's this much pressure to perform, you can take something that's really good and start seeing a lot more bad in it. And I think that's something that's happened with the game. And I can understand why there are so many like harsh critiques, so many harsh things people have said for my coverage of it. But hopefully this sort of like more in-depth, this more personable rundown has made my stance a lot more clear. And so with that, thank you to Etheria Restart for sponsoring the stream that this video was recorded from, and of course, sponsoring the video as well. And thank you for allowing me to provide this, in my opinion, right, well-rounded overview about some of its weaknesses as well as a lot of its strengths. And at the end of the day, right, one of the main things I'm looking for is to actually give an honest portrayal, and that's one of the reasons why I even recorded this one in the first place. So yeah, with that, Let me know what you all think. Peace.